I'm not naive enough to believe that the only people that are remotely being beat up by police or killed by police are black. Like it's just the numbers don't make sense for that to be the only group of people that this is happening to. There's a video that I saw of a gentleman in Arizona that got killed. Literally, white guy came out of a hotel room, and when they shot him, I was it was probably the most disturbing thing that I've seen as an adult, including the things that I've seen with uh, Eric Gardner as well as with George Floyd.
Real age. Appreciate it. Yeah. Hey. Hey, yo, what's all love?
It was probably the most disturbing thing that I've seen as an adult, including the things that I've seen with uh, Eric Gardner as well as with George Floyd. And the reason being is because when you really look at it, and this is the humanizing standpoint of just when you try and look at it from all different perspectives. Eric Gardner was a really large man, so you see these officers jump on him, and you're like, well, they didn't have to be there so long. Maybe they couldn't get him down. You naturally want to try and rationalize. Maybe it's not what I'm seeing, but then when it comes down to it, you're like, okay, well, at what point do you just the adrenaline stop, or somebody has to pull a person off? When you look at George Floyd, you're like, and what exactly is the purpose for the 8 minutes and 43 seconds? Like, there's no reason. You don't hold your little brother down 8 minutes and 43 seconds just restraining them.
It was completely sadistic.
Right. So but when you see this video, and I forgot the guy's name, like literally the man is on his knees with his hands in the air with an assault rifle being pointed at him. And the officer is yelling and screaming and yelling and screaming and saying, don't move, move, don't move, move, put your hands up, don't move, I'll shoot you, don't move. All this is going on. The guy is laying flat down. I still don't know what gave him cause to want to shoot him at that moment, other than I want to shoot somebody today. But what I also know is there's no coverage. There's no mass media. Because if there was ever a reason to be outside in a place, all of Arizona should have been outside. Like, okay, wait. No. In fact, it wasn't even the main areas of Arizona. I think it might have been like Sholo or Mesa. It was kind of an offshoot of the cities that you normally hear about. And so it brings me to this place of saying, okay, I don't know why that wasn't shown, but I know every black person is shown. Not every black person, but that's always the main thing that you get seen. Whether it's CNN, whether it's Fox, whether it's all these cases, this is what you keep getting shown. And I'm not saying it shouldn't be shown, but I do know that there is a part where you want to start a fire, you have to find a match, and you keep lighting that match, and the match keeps getting lit until you get a blaze. And then the minute that blaze happens, it's like, why are they acting like this? Why are they so aggressive? Why is this the case? And I'm like, but you've been feeding the same imagery. At least at this point, as me being an adult, I've told people this is this generation's Rodney King. But it's the same video I saw in '92, just he didn't die. If you go back further, you had the Watch Riot. They were out rioting over police brutality. It's the imagery stays the same for us, but there are other things going on. So it leads me to believe that there's more than just a police system that we need to deal with. There is, from being black, there is a community aspect of it that we're lacking something, because we made it okay for this to be the continuous thing, to where you sit there and say, okay, why do y'all keep showing this? Like, you should, like, fine, show it, but why is this the only image? If we're going to change police behavior, we need to show it happening to everyone, because everyone has to get on the same page. But by you only showing one, when you have a movement that says Black Lives Matter, the argument is, well, all lives matter. But we're not being shown all lives being affected by this one thing.
Jaron, I have to disagree. That I have seen images from the border down here in Texas, of Hispanic people, Central American people, children, women, men being abused and assaulted by law enforcement officers. Um, as a teenager, I was a hippie and a stoner, so I had my own experiences with the police where I was considered their enemy just because I had long hair and uh, the bumper sticker of a rock and roll radio station on my car. Um, you may be right that there's not a lot of exposure of white men being gunned down by police on TV right now. And I think that's partially because those news outlets would be branded as being racist if they were showing that instead of more prevalent police abuse of African American people right now. It just isn't the time, and I think it's unfortunately much more prevalent for the police in the United States of America to be abusive of minorities, especially African American men.
So I actually think that they don't show it because it doesn't happen all the time. It doesn't happen to the same degree, not to the point to where things happen and nobody get charged. I think that's one of the biggest difference. So even when you are a stoner, Stan, um, if the police bothered you or whatever, there was other people that would likely step in if they, if they treated you bad. Like maybe it was an uncle or a daddy or somebody else that would know somebody that would be like, oh no, you can't treat him like that. And I also want to speak to Jerron's message. I think one of the things about this guy that's in that hotel, I remember seeing that some years back. I think what's shocking you is like, oh man, they treating that dude like he black. Like that's what's getting you. It's like they are it's not that they mistreating somebody. It's just you're not used to seeing white people being mistreated like that. If that was a black dude, you'd be like, oh, they got another one. It would have been just that. But you saw a white dude and he was crawling. He was crawling in the hallway because he said, crawl to me. He was telling them all this stuff. And you're not used to seeing that. And then when they shot him, it was like, oh, that's not how these movies end normally. So that's what I think about those two items. And what we're dealing with is the whole system. We have a system that is injected with racism, that's injected with the poison. And it shows up in all these different places, like law enforcement interactions. It shows up in the courtrooms. It shows up in at work. It shows up in education. It shows up in entertainment. And so, as an example, I'm a project manager at an oil and gas company, but I've been told that, oh, you're articulate. I've been told that and stuff like that I've been getting told that for a very long time. And just the comment in itself is injected with it. Right. What makes you work so hard? Injection, right? And I can notice it because I study this on my off time. So I understand it, and so our job, I think, is to treat it just like the coronavirus, where we can say, all right, there is something that's out here. And so we need to do these things in order to push that something out. But if we sit around and act like it's not happening, then people are just going to continue to get sick. And in this case, it may be I can't think of the word, what they call it, but it's like, oh, it's a lot of people may be asymptomatic, right? You may be a racist, but you don't have to be under the racism. But those of us who are subject to the racism, that have to abide by the rules, that have to answer questions we may not need to answer, we still getting sick, right? And so I just wanted to share that is a thought. It's a system, and it's injected in all these different areas of activity. And what we're seeing is just one aspect. And it's because people are giving a thumbs up that it continues to happen. Right. So I don't know what the end happened with that case with the guy who crawled on the ground, but I never looked back into it. So I'm curious to know what even happened with that.
If I say I think, just don't hold me to it. But I believe, of course, the officer got fired. I think he got like 3 years.
Well, that's different. You see what I'm saying?
No.
That's different.
But to your point, to be honest with you, I wasn't really shocked by who it was happening to. I was really shocked by the fact of, okay, wait, you've literally told him to do these things here, and no aggressive move was made. Because the way that I look at the police behavior, honestly, is growing up, Compton, the thing that I had to accept before I got to the "you're coming after me" police officer thing, like you guys are out to get me, is we both have the same goal, which is to get home. That literally is the goal of any police interaction. They want to go home, I want to go home. So my job is probably as yours is dome light on, wallet on the dash, hands on the steering wheel, window down already. Before the cop gets out the car, I don't want to give you any thought process. I even got grown and started letting the passenger side down because I know he's going to ask me, where am I going? And then about 2 minutes later, his partner's going to come and ask me, where are you going? So let's just not make any unnecessary moves and have these conversations as open and direct as possible. And it's worked in California. It's worked driving from Texas to Louisiana, all the wonderful places that you can get stopped. But um, the thing that I've looked at is that, and to your point, like, I'm not saying that they don't show it, there. I can tell you that in regards to like the Hispanic culture in general, there's a whole nother issue that exists there, because if I'm a second-class citizen, for the most part, anyone coming across the border is looked at as a third-class citizen until they get here, and then the dollars come in, and that becomes a community at that point. It's just a different thing. It's weird. I say to kind of look at how it all structures, but I'll kind of get to that later, because that ties more into the economics.
Yeah.
Now, what I will say is that when we look at the why we see it, I agree with you. I don't necessarily know that the organization will be shown as racist, as it begins to open up a new dialogue if you start showing other people getting the same treatment. Because if you notice, every time something happens, the deflection is not about the police. The deflection becomes, in one case, he's disrespecting the flag, or why are they rioting and tearing up the neighborhood? It's like, well, here's the why. Like, this happened. Everybody's saying this is why it's happening. Now, sure, there are people are going to take advantage of whatever situation is going on. If 1 million people are running down the street, then you can best believe that 200,000 of them probably are going to try and run in somebody's house or run in somebody's thing, because they're just out there following the crowd. I grew up in an environment where if a gunshot go off, you don't stop to be like, why are y'all running? You just start running, and you all look alike at that point. That's just kind of what it is. I do believe that there is a point where you have to address everything at a certain level. Like, I think that the reason why we don't see it is because all the other cultures, to Curtis's point, is there's somebody to be accountable to. For Black people, we don't really hold any accountability. Like, if you look at it, the concept of Black Lives Matter movement is about trying to get people to see some kind of accountability. However, that has become this big thing of like protesting and what is this going to do? And then it splits there, because you have people that are like, well, that's not going to do anything. Voting's not going to do anything. All these things come into it to where you're not having one united goal of saying, hey, police have a messed up way of dealing with people in general. We need to talk about this reform. It always gets split down to this other place. And it's great that everybody wants to do it, but I'm watching everything that's happened now. And as I've told people directly, these corporations that are coming into it, yes, they're doing something all of a sudden, but it feels very disingenuous for you to now be like, oh yeah, you know what? We're going to give some money to something so that we can stop this thing that we've just become aware of. All right.
Get everybody to calm down and go home so they can keep selling you shit. That's what I do. I'm telling you. Like, and from a marketing perspective, I don't think they want a leadership or goal for Black Lives Matter, because then it can be weaponized and struck down. You know, if it's constantly evolving, then they can't pin it down and stop it. Do you see what I'm saying? It can
Right.
spin off into community action. It can spin off into stuff about memorials. It can. There's no one issue that can be solved right now. So that's what's allowing the momentum to continue. At least that's from my perspective and what I've been watching and applying it to a filter of that. You know, also, so it can't be weaponized by political parties right now. You know, that's important.
Stay
You know?
like a man who has something he wants to say. Or maybe not. I don't know.
For me,
Yeah, I thought you had something. You just looked like you wanted to say.
I was because my time here is limited. I was just wondering if Jaron, as a black man, and you too, Curtis, if you could see a change happen right now, if you could like focus on one major aspect of what's happening in America now, which aspect of the changes going on would you like to see happen strongly, most fully? Would it be police reform? Would it be, I just think police reform is the essential. There's a saying in journalism, which I'm a journalism major, that democracy dies in darkness. And if there's not transparency with the police force, who they're shooting, why they're shooting, if the cops are judging themselves, like, a police judgment board that's judged was legitimate or not, that there's just no reason for cops to play within the law. Their business isn't transparent, even though it's a public business, and it should be.
Real age. Appreciate it. Yeah. Hey. Hey, yo, it's all love, but love got a thin line. And I go all out to defend mine. I ain't about to let no is in mine. I tell them worry about yourself and you'll be just fine. Where I'm from, wake up to commit crime and kill time, running from the canine. I climb while my haters on a decline. And if you're busy watching me, then that's a big sign. You ain't got enough going on. You need something else to focus on, or better weed to get loaded on. I've been campaigning so hard that I can't remember an election that I ever really voted on. I wake them up like putting folders on. I do my thing, I don't go along. And it's really sad, doing bad and they wanna get mad and lash out when the hope is gone. But they be dreaming and watching, we be scheming and plotting. They ain't leave me no options, man, I gotta get paid. My family used to be cotton and I still ain't forgot it. I ain't about to go back to ever being a slave. They be dreaming and watching, we be scheming and plotting. They ain't leave me no options, man, I gotta get paid. My family